Okay, so we're just swimming in information all day long, right? Claims, ideas, you name it. But have you ever just stopped and asked yourself a really basic question? Yeah, in a world that's just jam-packed with information, how do you actually know what's true? How do you cut through all that noise to find out what's real? It's a massive question. But luckily for us, people have been working on a system for this for centuries. And you've definitely seen this before, right? Probably in a middle school science class. It's the scientific method. But here's the thing. This simple, powerful loop isn't just for scientists in lab coats. It's a framework for literally anyone who's looking for real answers. All right, let's dive into the classic loop, the one we all learned in school. Because while it might feel like just some simple recipe, its structure is what makes it so incredibly powerful for discovery. Okay, I get it. When you look at a chart like this, it can seem, well, pretty intimidating, right? It's got arrows going everywhere, all these feedback loops. It looks like a map for a high-tech lab that you'd need a PhD to even understand. But trust me, the core idea is way, way simpler. And this is where it all comes together. That crazy-looking map, it really just boils down to these 5 essential steps. It all kicks off with curiosity. You see something, you observe something, and you just ask, why does that happen? Then you make an educated guess, your hypothesis. But a guess is totally useless until you actually test it out. After you run your experiment and look at the results, you either tweak your guess to make it better, or if you're really confident, you share what you found. It's this beautiful, elegant cycle of learning and getting smarter. All right, so that's the classic framework. Pretty cool. But now let's take that same idea, that same centuries-old method, and see how it's being used in a really surprising, super modern way with artificial intelligence. So technologist Guy Lakeman has this really fascinating idea. He says that the best way to learn how to use AI is to stop thinking like a user, and start thinking like a team leader. What does he mean by that? Well, the idea is that AI today is unbelievably powerful, but it's also really, really complex. You can't just bark an order at it and expect a perfect answer. No way. You have to manage it, you have to guide it, you have to test what it gives you. In other words, you have to lead this team of expert agents. And what's the best framework ever invented for leading an investigation? You guessed it, the scientific method. And check this out, it maps over perfectly. You, as the team leader, you see a problem. That's your observation. Then you form a hypothesis about what's really going on. Then, and this is the cool part, you send out your AI agents, your team, to test that idea against all sorts of different sources. You pull all their results back in, analyze the combined output, draw a conclusion, and then you refine your whole approach. It's the exact same logic from the science lab, just applied to a team of algorithms. Pretty amazing, right? Okay, so what's the end game here? What's the ultimate goal of this whole process, whether you're in a lab coat or leading an AI team? Lakeman points to one final super important step, and he uses a very specific word to describe it. He says the final step is to publish results as a premise and an axiom of truth. Whoa, an axiom of truth, that sounds heavy, right? Incredibly important. The idea is, once your investigation is done and your theory has survived all the tough tests, you establish it as a kind of foundational starting point so other people can build on your work. But what exactly is an axiom? Yeah, an axiom? It's not a word you hear every day, but it's absolutely fundamental to how we build knowledge about anything. So, at its core, an axiom is really just a starting point. It's a statement that we all agree to accept as true, so we can then build more complex arguments right on top of it. Think of it like the solid ground you stand on before you start climbing a huge mountain of logic. It's the foundation. And it's interesting, the meaning of the word has kind of changed over time. Back in classic philosophy, an axiom was something so obviously blindingly true that you couldn't even question it. But in modern science and logic, it's a bit more practical. It's simply an agreed-upon starting point. It doesn't have to be some grand, universal, self-evident truth. It just has to be a solid premise that we can all use to start our reasoning. Okay, let's pull all of this together. We've gone from a classic school science lesson to a high-tech lab, all the way to the cutting edge of AI. But what does any of this mean for you, in your everyday life? And this right here is the most important takeaway of all. The scientific method isn't just for scientists or AI gurus, it's a mental model. It's a toolkit for clear thinking that anyone can use. So why does this matter to you? Well, think about it.
This whole framework gives you a structured way to tackle pretty much any problem. It pushes you to be curious and ask critical questions. It helps you separate what's a tested idea from what's just a wild guess. And maybe most importantly, it lets you build your knowledge step by step on a really solid foundation. It's your personal toolkit for finding the truth.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. In your job, in your hobbies, or maybe just something you've always wondered about, what's one unexplained observation in your world that you could start with? This powerful framework, it's all yours to use.